welcome everyone to our electronic council meeting. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, Regional Council is practicing physical distancing and the majority of councillors are participating electronically. With me in the chamber are Councillors Jowett and Strickland. In an attempt to speed things up, we have assigned a mover and a seconder, and I will read these out, and then I will state the result of the motion. I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge the land on which we gather today is the land traditionally used by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabeg, and Neutral people. I also acknowledge the enduring presence and the deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. I now ask Mrs. Fletcher to do roll call.
We're going to start at the bottom of the list today. Councillor Brvanovich.
I'm here, sorry.
Good, I took you by surprise, sorry. Councillor Strickland.
I appreciate changing the order, but I wouldn't characterize it as bottom.
Sorry. I apologize. Councillor Shantz.
Alphabetically challenged.
Sorry, I'm here and
Breaking up.
maybe I will probably turn my video off.
Councillor Nowak.
Here.
Councillor McGarry.
Here.
Councillor Rentz.
Here.
Councillor Kiefer.
Here.
Councillor Jowett. Here. Councillor Yaworski.
Here.
Councillor Harris.
He's waving. He's here.
Councillor Galloway.
Here.
Councillor Foxton.
Present.
Councillor Erb.
Here.
Councillor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Armstrong.
Here.
Chair Redman.
Here.
All in attendance.
Thank you. We'll now vote on a motion to reconvene in open session. This is moved by Councillor Rentz and seconded by Councillor Harris. Please use your voting icons, and if you're in the chamber, if you raise your hand now, that means you're in favor. That is carried. Thank you, colleagues. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none, we have no presentations, no petitions, no delegations. The minutes of the previous meetings, we will now consider a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meetings as listed. This is moved by Councillor Jowett and seconded by Councillor Jaworski. And those are on page 6, items A through L. So if you would use your icons to vote and raise your hand in the chamber if you're in favor. That is carried. Thank you, colleagues. Communications, the council had an information package as of November 18th that was distributed electronically. Those items are for your information unless anyone has a specific question or wants to make a comment on anything in the package. Seeing none, I'll now entertain a motion to go into the committee of the whole to consider reports. This is moved by Councillor Galloway and seconded by Councillor Erb. Please use your voting icons or raise your hand if you're in agreement in the chamber. That is carried. We will now have a motion to accept all of the finance reports. Does anyone have any comments on any of them? This is moved by Councillor Clark and seconded by Councillor Armstrong. There's quite a few financial reports. Seeing no questions, please use your icons to vote in favor of acceptance, and in the chamber, raise your hand if you're in favor. That is carried. I'll now entertain a motion to accept the Committee of the Whole summary. This is moved by Councillor Clark and seconded by Councillor Verbanovich. Are there any comments on this? Please use your icons to vote in favor or opposed, and in the chamber, raise your hand now if you're in favor. That is carried. Any report from the Chief Administrative Officer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of comments. First, again, for those who were not able to watch the Budget Committee meeting today, thank you to staff. Great job responding to Council's request to come in with a budget that not only is for today, but for the future. I realize that when we're trying to provide a wide range of services to 600,000 people, that's a tough ask any year, let alone when we're faced with COVID. So really appreciate the professionalism and also the wisdom of Council as we go through this next budget period. I'm reluctant to raise this for fear of raising more attention to the issue, but I do want to comment on something that Dr. Wang and the public health staff are facing, and that is beyond negative commentary, in some cases, racist comments and completely inappropriate, abusive comments on social media and so on. I realize there's different views to the pandemic. I realize there's different views to approaches that should be taken. We serve the public and we recognize that. I also, coming from my world of Ontario Health, realize just the heroic work that public health did, that our team in long-term care, that our partners in hospitals and home care and so on. And people have worked more than 300 days straight trying to keep all of your loved ones safe. So to see some of the comments expressed particularly on social media that I think cross a line are inappropriate, and certainly I will do everything possible to defend staff. In that case, I'd ask that the commentary, even when it isn't in alignment with public health philosophy, just stay a step above. We're all from the same community, and I think some people are crossing the line. So a plea to the community to keep the commentary again reasonable, I guess, is the request. Recognizing we're all in this together, and again, I can assure you that public health and the entire team here will continue to spend every waking moment trying to save lives and trying to save businesses and trying to do the best they can for the community. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lochner. I have no report, but the regional clerk does. It's the Regional Council Composition Review, the final option. Mrs. Fletcher?
Just basically to summarize the report, we have achieved a majority from the area municipalities as well as from the total population within the region, or total number of electors within the region based on that activity. We're thankful for the area municipalities working through the timelines with respect to the council composition review, and this would conclude our activities. So it's still required that council needs, in order to achieve the full triple majority, council needs to pass a resolution saying that it endorses the status quo. So that's what the recommendation is here for this evening. And as well, I would note that some of the correspondence that is attached to this particular activity included comments from Cambridge and from the City of Kitchener about conducting a review in 2026 following that next election, but staff would wait for direction with respect to those activities.
Thank you, Mrs. Fletcher. Councillor Bravanovich.
Thank you, Chair Redman. And thanks to staff for the work that they did on this. I am certainly supportive of the recommendation coming forward. Thank you, Ms. Fletcher, for noting the request from our two councils. There is a second part that didn't, that was part of our resolution that didn't make it into your report, but has been forwarded to the province as part of the City of Kitchener's request. And that's that the restriction barring candidates for from running in both upper and lower municipal tiers be removed. And that is in fact consistent with what exists in some other provinces in Canada, where people actually do have the option of running in more than one municipality, and then it's really up to the electors to decide if that's something that they want or don't want. And so that was part of the report, and since it wasn't noted in yours, I just wanted to make sure that the council was aware of that.
So are you just flagging that, Councillor Vrbanovich, that is part of Kitchener's report?
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay. In the past, when we've dealt with this, we've asked for a recorded vote. So I'm going to ask for a recorded vote. Oh, Councillor Strickland, sorry.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I've been fairly silent on this as we've gone forward, and I just feel that Councillor Vrbanovich, I know he's relaying the views of his council, but that can't go unresponded from my perspective. I think that there's all kinds of issues we need to deal with in terms of governance between the regional and local municipalities, and allowing or, if I'm understanding it correctly, lobbying the provincial government to change the Municipal Act so councillors can run for a city seat and a regional seat at the same time is not the answer to our governance questions. And when you even look at this process right now, as a regional government with 600,000 people and operating capital budget of over $1.6 billion, if we want to add one councillor, we have to get a triple majority from all our councils to make any changes to council composition. If there's anything wrong with our system, that's something that's certainly wrong in terms of governance. And so I've hesitated to raise this throughout the process, but I have been quiet for a little bit too long when I'm seeing some of the things that are coming forward from our local municipalities, which I do not think in the long run will help with governance of the region of Waterloo. If there's anything that could help with governance, we should be certainly able to decide on our own how big this council should be. And we should be advocating for changes in the Municipal Act to make that a reality. Then maybe at some point I'll bring that as a notice of motion, but I can't continue to go on and have the local municipalities make serious representations to the provincial government on governance issues that affect the region in a way which I think is quite negative. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Rentz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I hope you're not shuddering when you see my hand go up.
What was that?
Yeah, I think this is something that we've kind of just swept under the carpet, and I don't think the public really is very interested on this whole governance question. But, you know, I feel remiss if I didn't mention that, you know, our own former regional chair, Ken Sealing, and Michael Fenn wrote a report and submitted it to the provincial government, and they buried it. I don't know what that report says. I think there was some options on whether, you know, some regions should amalgamate or some municipalities should amalgamate. But I think the point is we've all kind of just ignored it. But I think it's really important. If we're going to lobby the government, we should lobby the government to release the report so at least the citizens of Ontario that paid for it can at least see what the thoughts were of Michael and Ken. So, you know, most people don't really care about this. They're more worried about losing their job or not being able to make their mortgage payments. So that's kind of why I didn't raise this. But now that the curtains come open a little bit, I think that we should be seriously considering lobbying the provincial government to get them to release their report. At least the Minister of Municipal Affairs. I mean, they read it, they know what it says. Why shouldn't we be able to see what it says? It doesn't mean that it's going to be implemented, but I think it's important that we all have understand the knowledge and the thinking that went behind it and the rationale for it, whatever it is. And if any of you know what it says, I'd be happy to hear from you, because that's probably a well-kept secret. Thank you.
So, Councillor Rents, just for your information, I did write a letter on behalf of this council at the council's request, asking for the portion of the Ken Sealing, Mike Fenn governance review that pertained to Waterloo region. And I know that there are mayors and chairs across Ontario that asked the same thing. They said, if you're not going to release the whole report, can we have the part with the recommendations that pertain to us? And it was a resounding no. And I made a personal intervention to Minister Clark as well, asking if he would consider that. But just so you know, I have made petitions on behalf of this council to get those recommendations, because I think both Ken Sealing and Mike Fenn are smart men, and they did a very thorough job. And it's too bad that all of that work is only for the ears and eyes of cabinet.
And I guess my comments are more to the point that if municipal politicians are going to lobby the government, they should be lobbying them to release the report, not to look at adding extra seats on the councils. That was my intent. Thank you.
Thank you. So I see no other comments. A recorded.
Sorry, I raised my hand again, Madam Chair.
Oh, I didn't see it. Go ahead, Councillor Ravanovich.
Sorry, I just need to clarify something that Councillor Rent said. Nobody is lobbying for additional seats on any council. In fact, our council endorsed the recommendation that came from the regional clerk for the record.
Okay, thank you for that point of clarification. So the recommendation is before you that Region of Waterloo affirms the current composition of regional council being 16-member council consisting of 1 regional chair, 7 mayors, 2 Cambridge councillors, 4 Kitchener councillors, 2 Waterloo councillors, in accordance with Section 218, subsection 6 of the Municipal Act. B, that the resolutions consenting to the current composition of regional council of the cities of Kitchener and Waterloo and the townships of North Dumfries, Wilmot, and Woolwich, and the area municipality. I don't know why Cambridge isn't in there. Cambridge, you're in there. I love you. You're part of this.
Wellesley.
And Wellesley. And that a copy of this report be forwarded to Municipal Affairs. So it's all 7 area municipalities and the region. So this is moved by Councillor Strickland and seconded by Councillor Schatz. You're not moving it? Who would like to move this? Moved by Councillor Foxton, seconded by Councillor Schatz.
Madam Chair, didn't you ask for a recorded vote?
I asked for a recorded vote.
Chair Redman.
In favor.
Councillor Armstrong.
In favor.
Councillor Clark.
In favor.
Councillor Erb.
In favor.
Councillor Foxton.
In favor.
Councillor Galloway.
In favor.
Councillor Harris.
In favor.
Councillor Jaworski.
In favor.
Councillor Jowett.
In favor.
Councillor Kiefer. I'm sorry, Councillor Kiefer, I didn't hear your response.
In favor.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence.
I vote yes.
Councillor McGarry.
In favor.
Councillor Nowak.
In favor.
Councillor Shantz.
Favor.
Councillor Strickland.
Against.
Councillor Ravanovich.
In favor.
That is 15 in favor and 1 opposed.
Thank you. That motion is carried, colleagues. Other matters under a committee of the whole, motion for the committee of whole to rise and council to resume. This is moved by Councillor Nowak and seconded by Councillor McGarry. Please use your icons to vote yes or no, and those in the chamber, if you raise your hand, that's affirmative. That is carried, that the Committee of the Whole rise and Council resume. I'll now consider a motion to adopt the proceedings of the Committee of the Whole. This is moved by Councillor Harris and seconded by Councillor Jaworski, that Council adopt the proceedings of the Committee of the Whole. Please use your icons, and if you raise your hand in the chamber, you are in favor. That is carried. Motions, we now have a motion, a notice of motion. I would ask Councillor Jowett to please speak to her motion. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair Redman. And thanks to all my colleagues for your patience as I've sort of had a hurry up and wait situation with regards to the GRCA and some of the information we've been receiving. We have been in consult, I will agree, for almost an entire 2 years discussing different parts of the GRCA, whether it be mandated or auxiliary programming, et cetera, and the Bill 229 that we're all very familiar with came out and has not been accompanied with regulations, but does have some information for us to be taking a closer look at. And so there's a motion before you. And as I understand from Tim, we're going to get a copy of it, so I don't have to bore you with my lovely reading skills. So the motion is before you. It's a pretty serious motion. I would like it, Chair Redman, if you'll indulge me, to allow Michelle Sergi she has prepared some information to share as well, and then I will make my final ask after that with regard to this motion. Is that possible?
That is possible. Ms. Sergi, are you on the, I saw Rod earlier. Michelle, are you here?
I am here. Thank you, Chair Redman. Through the chair, I wanted to start off by stating that we really truly value our relationship with and the work of the GRCA related to natural heritage systems, natural hazards, sub-watershed work, and of course, source water
Can you turn it up?
Sorry, Michelle, we can't hear you.
Hang on, Michelle. We're just turning your volume up.
Sound a little better?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'll start again. Through the chair, I wanted to start by stating that regional staff truly value our relationship with and the work of the Grand River Conservation Authority with respect to our natural heritage system, natural hazard lands, sub-watershed work, and of course, source water protection. And I wanted to provide a little bit of context for you in terms of some of the operational implications for the region related to the proposed changes to the Conservation Authorities Act. So the changes being proposed are quite broad and cover a variety of matters and range from matters like governance and the makeup of the GRCA board to the permitting process. So there are three major areas that I wanted to highlight for you. One is the changes to the permitting area. Time limits are being imposed relative to the number of permits. If the timelines aren't met, of course, the permit would be appealable, as well as it could be referred to the province. So there's effectively a provincial override related to permits as well. That's how I'm going to describe it. And it's really taking that permitting process and the decision-making away from the local context and away from some of the local experts. And of course, not necessarily aligning with planning approvals, which is of course concerning for us. In addition, the province will be prescribing mandatory and non-mandatory programs and services, and will be prescribing standards associated with those services. And as Councillor Jowett mentioned, the regs haven't been released. So this is a particular concern because we don't have the details associated with the true implications of these changes. And so we do have a memorandum of understanding with the GRCA. So we're hopeful that some of our, ongoing work that is non-mandatory, so our sub-watershed work, and we do have agreements such as our rural quality program. So we're hopeful that those will be able to continue, but there's no guarantee until we understand the details associated with that. And so again, that is concerning. And in addition, what's effectively happening here is that the province is taking away sort of that local discretion in terms of how we work with in our relationship with the GRCA and our ability to draw on their expertise. So another change is a complementary change. I guess that's not quite the right word. A consistent change with the Planning Act. where the GRCA would no longer be a public body that's able to appeal planning applications directly. So it removes that authority from them. Based on our current memorandum of understanding, the GRCA provides a lot of support to planning if we do end up in appeal situations. And it is unclear as to whether or not they'd actually be able to participate in any of those appeals without authorization from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And so we do rely on that support as we move forward on some very complicated matters. So it is anticipated that the province is going to be moving forward quite quickly with these changes before the House rises in December. And of course, those are some of the operational concerns that we do have with it, and are supportive of the idea that we ask the province to pause and go back and talk to the conservation authorities about the proposed changes and address some of the concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. So we have the motion moved by Helen, seconded by Catherine McGarry. I have a few speakers or questioners. Councillor Clark, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'll certainly support the motion. I do have one question of clarification, though. I know that even back in 2018, the province referred to this taking away non-mandatory programs. But what I haven't heard is specifically what non-mandatory programs are being targeted and why. I don't think they're talking about campgrounds. I think they're talking about something that's a little more ominous. But can you speak to that, please?
Michelle, do you have an answer to that, or is that a GRCA question?
So through the chair, one of the challenges, like I said, when the province comes out with proposed legislative changes like this is we don't see the regulations until after the changes are made. And to answer that question, I believe we'd actually need to see the regulations to understand what's being prescribed as a non-mandatory program or service.
Councillor Clark?
Thank you. Thank you. Just to follow up, though. So perhaps this is a question for the chair of the GRCA. So we don't know specifically, they haven't articulated it, but what is it that we're concerned about?
Councillor Jowett?
Thank you, Councillor Clark. It's a very relevant question. There were lots of discussions back and forth throughout a fairly significant amount of time about what was core and what was not core, and the position of levy dollars as they're appropriated in this case. And so Samantha and I intentionally went through our books, and certainly during COVID, looked at anything that the levy was apportioned to, and we were very critical in that thinking. However, when the bill came out for its first reading within the last 3 weeks, we learned that that's not even the conversation. The conversation is around the things that Michelle Sergi has articulated operationally quite succinctly. What is of graver concern here, at least in my opinion, to the regional government and certainly other governments associated with the watershed is they want to illuminate the presence and power of municipal representation. But that sounds all very lofty, but we have a do no harm to your neighbor philosophy, as you well know, as you've spent some time on GRCA. And GRCA has a watershed philosophy in that water knows no boundaries. So we have invested significantly at the region in different water investments, in infrastructure, et cetera, that literally have the impact on how Brantford is able to drink water. Now, 1 million people drink from this watershed, and so it behooves us to continue the watershed philosophy, and the changes to the structure that they're proposing are literally incongruent with watershed philosophy. So what that leads us to, in our opinion, and we have sought some legal opinions, is that there will become some ambiguity around operational negligence. I know that at the same time as I studied my water, for my water efficiency test, quite a few of us did, and we had to spend a day studying or half day studying, and then we had to pass a test because of the Clean Water Act, and we are responsible for that in our communities. And certainly that is that is some of the threat that's before us now. So we don't take the decision lightly to open this up and have strong conversations about it. As a matter of fact, as we get near to the first week of December, the conversations could be stronger. So what I am asking everyone to do is I want to unanimously support this motion, but I also am hoping that our heads of council that are with us will take it to their councils. And on the GRCA link, on the GRCA website, we have links that you can write to MPPs or MPs. I've urged all of our board at GRCA to reach out to anyone who will listen to them, to warn of the operational negligence portion that is of concern to us, but certainly of the categorically unique changes that are relieving the authority of its authority. That's very significant also. So that's sort of it in a nutshell, and I'm very sorry that took a bit, but it's a complicated organization. So thank you.
Councillor Clark?
Very well expressed. Thank you.
I thought it was too. Councillor McGarry?
Thank you, and I thank you through you, Madam Chair. I fully support this motion, and I am extremely concerned about the not only what's proposed in the legislation, but the way it came about with no consultation and no warning to the conservation authorities. I do have a lot of knowledge on conservation authorities. In 2017, I helped shepherd the modernization of the Conservation Authorities Act through the Ontario Legislature as minister. So I know that with some of the changes made then and the support of Conservation Ontario, those changes were meant to assist the relationship between the municipalities and the governance of their conservation authorities. It's been my opinion that the current government has not supported conservation authorities beyond their core mandated services, as Councillor Jowett has talked about, which is really flood protection. And don't forget, 50% of the flood money last year was removed by this government, and erosion and soil control. Only about 4 to 7 to 9% of an operating budget of a current conservation authority in the province relies on provincial money. The rest is from the levy from its municipalities. So what I imagine right now is, from what I read from this this program, is that it'll be an opt-in, opt-out program for municipalities. And so if you imagine the programs of a conservation authority as a brick wall, and you remove every third brick from the base, then eventually the wall becomes unstable and falls. And I can see that happening in the GRCA, whose municipality relies on a number of programs, including tree planting, climate change initiatives, source water protection, a number of other things that are really important to our communities. And it also includes recreation and awareness of nature, et cetera. So I'm extremely concerned. I think that I'm in full support of this as well from a governance issue. As head of council in a watershed, what concerns me is that the watershed is no longer seen as a whole. It will be a piecemeal approach to an incredibly important resource, as Councillor Jowett has outlined. So I worry that my fiduciary duty, which should be to the board at the GRCA as a director, would then shift to myself as a city, and I'm not sure that government's model really it works. So I'm concerned. I will be taking this forward to Cambridge Council as well. I'm in full support. I did speak to another group of individuals this morning, and their main question was, what about the GRCA? So I know that there's a lot of concern from our residents as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGarry. Councillor Foxton.
This is a major concern, due to you, Chair. So imagine now the enforcement is not allowed for the GRCA. So let's say that you report somebody dumping into wetlands and starting to build into wetlands. And this is going to be allowed now, that people can actually build into wetlands. And the GRCA is not allowed under this new procedure to send their officers in to investigate and lay charges. That's being taken away from this. So they can no longer go onto people's property to investigate if wetlands are being affected at all. So that's number one, that's a major concern. The other one is the Minister of Natural Resources and Forests, who, as Michelle, Sergey, and Rod Regier know, is not a friend of water, has given supreme rights. So if he's got people that want to build on a wetland and we're holding him up, he can step in and say, sorry, they're building. Supreme authority. And I see Rod smiling because he knows what this minister's like. Does not believe that water needs protecting. So this is a huge, huge deal in everything that we hold dear. I don't know if it was my council or this council last week. Yes, it was this council saying we were going to support the program by the GRCA that gets farmers to ensure that their runoff doesn't go into our streams. Well, with this new program, doesn't happen. They can do that. They don't have to buy into the program or anything because you can't go on their property to see if it's happening. You can't help out. It's a terrifying bill in a lot of ways. And we really have to stand up for this. And we really have to fight. I'm really terrified of what's going to happen to our water. And as I think Councillor Jowett was trying to get to, how much of our water is surface water? And I asked Rod Regier that one time, and I think you told me, or Michelle, 87% or around there. All of that's going to be affected now because the regulations are going to be removed. They do not have to protect. And we will not be allowed to go on their lands to see what's going on. Terrifies me.
Thank you, Councillor Fox, and that was a call to arms if I ever heard one. Councillor Galloway, your hand was up and it went down. Did you change your mind or would you like to join in this discussion? Okay, Councillor Jowett, Councillor McGarry has spoken to this. We'll give you the last word and then we'll vote on the motion.
Much appreciated, Chair Redman, and certainly I do, again, appreciate all my fellow colleagues and their support. And of course, I want to thank Chris because I know I kind of brought this in and I know you were trying to help me make sure that we got it in on time, on budget. So thank you for that, Chris. But yes, so I do have my final ask, and it is that you take it back to your municipalities as a head of council, and at least put it on the floor. At least look at some way of communicating respectfully to the province in a way that can help them understand some of the dangers that we don't want to find out too late. And so again, and if you can urge the people in your communities to go to the website, look for the links, and write to the people that can hear what they have to say. That's everything. Thank you very much for indulging me so very much today.
Well, it's a very important issue, and I fully support it too. So this has been moved by Councillor Jowett, seconded by Councillor McGarry. You did see it flash up on the screen. Councillor Foxton, did you want to speak again?
Just really quickly, can we publicize that link that people can read, write or speak to oppose this? We really need to make it public. People in North Dumfries have already been sending letters to me, but I need them to go to the province as well. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just jump
Okay,
in?
thank you. Councillor Jowett is nodding. Councillor Shantz.
Yeah, thank you. Could you just forward this to each of the municipalities if you'd like us to consider it in our own councils?
We will circulate it to all area municipalities. Councillor Shantz, is that what you're asking?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Please use your voting icons from home and raise your hand in the chamber if you're in favor. That is carried. Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Jowett and other members of Regional Council, as well as our community representatives that do yeoman's work on the GRCA. It's very important and very much appreciated. Any unfinished business? Sorry? Councillor Verbanovich, do you have other business or did you want to make a comment?
No, I'll leave that until, because I didn't get it to the clerk in time. I didn't bring it forward for today.
Do you want to put a marker down? Do you want to give a verbal notice of motion?
Well, I did that at our last meeting, but I wasn't able to get the final wording to the clerk in time for the agenda, so I'll bring it next meeting.
So you want to renew our interest and just say what the topic is? You're on mute, Barry.
Sorry, the topic, as you'll recall, was the issue of people who are having a hard time with respect to sick leave and everything else that goes along with it, and how that relates to COVID.
Thank you. Okay. Other business is a COVID-19 update. Mr. Lochner, should I go to you first or right to Dr. Wang? Dr. Wang, welcome, and welcome Sharlene Sedgwick-Walsh.
Yes, thank you. So I'll pass the floor soon to Sharlene, who will present an update regarding a proposed interim plan for isolation spaces. Council had requested that we bring back a proposed interim plan while we were in the process of submitting and then waiting for federal approval of funding for these isolation spaces. But before I pass it over to Sharlene, I would first like to thank Bruce very much for his comments earlier, and really thank all of Council for their support of all of our staff. It's been felt and really appreciated, and also for the support of Council for all of the regional staff who are also working tirelessly during this pandemic and difficult time to provide the best service that they can to the residents of our region. I also wanted to note that although I'm often the focus of comments, it really, unfortunately, is our frontline staff who bear the brunt of the negative comments. So I just really wanted people to know it's much less me and much more them. The other thing I wanted to note is we are very thankful for the times that our citizens take the time to send us some notes of support, because we do receive that, and we've received that quite a bit since the news articles, and we really appreciate that. And we also know, staff also know that this community is a very caring community. And, we are kind and caring residents. And whenever we see people express kindness to each other, whether it's to us or to other people that, they're interacting with, and we see that type of kindness in our community, that really motivates staff. And so I just wanted to say a big thanks on behalf of staff in public health and paramedics, of course, for all the acts of kindness that people are expressing to us as well as to each other. Thank you. And now I will pass it over to Sharlene, who will have a few slides to review with you. Thanks.
Welcome, Sharlene.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening, everyone. So I'm going to ask, the slides are up. Okay, so I wanted to be able to provide you with a bit of a brief update on the status of our application for the voluntary safe isolation sites, as well as to share with you the interim plan. We can go to the next slide. So since we shared this information with you a little over a week ago, we have our program application is completed in draft form, and we're starting the review process. So we anticipate being able to meet the submission deadline of this Friday, November 27th. In preparation for the application, we have had a number of consultations with members of our community, and we've listed some of the partners there on the slide for you. And we have found that each of these folks has contributed some really helpful information to us in terms of how we form our application, but as well sharing with us some of the experiences they've had within their own program. So in particular, the House of Friendship was a tremendous support in sharing with us some of the learnings they had from setting up isolation site for the homeless and precariously housed population. So it's been really beneficial for us to do those consultations. We have a few more lined up, and we'll continue to do that work even after the application is submitted. The next slide. So some of the decisions that we have made in order to prepare the application include defining, at least on a very high level, the eligibility criteria for the isolation spaces. So the priority for those accessing the space will be those who are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. And the eligibility will include any individual who shares a home with one or more other individuals who test positive for COVID-19 or who are awaiting a test result. And they must have lack the ability to safely isolate at home for the required time period, or they may require a place to self-isolate for personal safety reasons, such as the risk of domestic violence. And the third criteria potentially would be they share a household or they identify themselves as someone who is at high risk of severe COVID-19 disease. So they have some other underlying health concerns that makes isolation at home with others difficult to accomplish. Next slide. Through the process, we've also identified some of the key roles and responsibilities. So from a public health perspective, we're continuing to take on the role of project coordination and financial oversight for the project. We'll be looking at the contracts for the provision of space, using a hotel for food and beverage, as well as cleaning and laundry services. We'll be ensuring that there's access to transportation to the isolation site. I'll be working with our partners in the health protection and investigation team to provide infection prevention and control support. And we've also developed a fairly robust evaluation process for the entire program. Next slide. From our community partners, we've had conversations around supports that they could provide to the project. And so that includes providing outreach and peer workers to be on site at the isolation center to provide support for folks who are accessing the site, including wellness checks and ensuring that they have access to other community programs and services they may require. Also providing support to the client's family. So if the individual has left the home to isolate at the isolation site, we recognize that there could be significant needs that the rest of the family may experience. And so we've talked with community partners about providing support in a variety of different ways. We're looking at creating an advisory committee to help ensure that the service is accessible and culturally appropriate to the individuals who wish to use it. Community partners will also be looking at promoting the service among their staff and will be a referral source to public health for access to the site. Next slide, please. So in terms of an interim plan, we've sort of identified an interim process from November 30th through to January 31st. So that is a 2-month window. The reason for that is that we do recognize that although our application will go in at the end of November, the 3 to 4 week turnaround time for processing will take us right into the Christmas season. So we built in a buffer should it take a little bit longer to get a response. The proposed location for the site will be in Kitchener, and in the interim plan will provide support for approximately 30 people, and that's the number we've used to base our interim budget. Public Health will provide staff and administrative support until funding is received to hire dedicated staff for the project. And just as I've mentioned, the coordination of service, ensuring that we have the infection prevention and control processes in place, and then any translation services or other supports that may be required, Public Health will provide in the interim. Next slide. So what you have here is an estimated budget for someone who would use the isolation site for approximately 14 days. Lodging would cost approximately $95 per room. And so for the 14 days, we're looking at $1,300. We have food costs. Breakfast is included in the room costs. And so we have allocated for lunch and dinner costs. The cost of the outreach or support worker on site 7 days a week is costed on a per person basis at just under $500. And there's costing for laundry, transportation, and PPE. We've estimated that the cost per person for 14 days is just over $2,200. Next slide, please. So for the duration of the time period that we're recommending we operate the isolation site, the costs then we've looked at in terms of the lodging, food, outreach, and so on. The additional cost there you will see is equipment. In talking with some of our community partners, one of the key pieces they highlighted for us is that while the site would have Wi-Fi access, many folks, if they have access to a tablet or a computer, would likely leave that at home for their other family members. And so it was recommended that we consider the purchase of a Chromebook to have in each room so that they could stay connected to their family members while they're on the isolation site, and also provides a means for the outreach and support folks to connect with individuals virtually rather than a face-to-face connection. So that would be the equipment cost of $2,450. And then we built in a bit of a contingency fund at 5%. So the cost for the 2-month window is just under $76,000. And I think that is slide unless, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the document.
Okay, Councillor Foxton.
I was going to talk on another issue, but some days I feel like I may want to have you put me there. But anyways, I just wanted to talk to you about Dr. Wang and your group and how much we support you, and we're sorry you've gone through what you've gone through. And people, I guess, needed to vent somewhere. And they're not taking the responsibility of realizing the only reason we're in the situation we're in is because the numbers have increased. It has nothing to do with you. It has a lot to do with what's going on in our system, and you're trying to correct the problem. So thank you for all you do and your team. This whole council behind you 200%, and I'm sorry you had to go through what you went through.
Okay, thank you very much. I will pass it on to staff. They will be very appreciative.
Thank you. Councillor Kiefer.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions. It looks like a good program. I'm just wondering if, in fact, they had an opportunity to engage, because unless I missed it, I didn't see the Cambridge South Food Bank on there, or the City of Cambridge, or the Cambridge Shelter Corporation. Were they engaged at all in this?
Sharlene?
Through you, Madam Chair. We connected with the Community Supports Table, and they sent the invitation to a consultation through that group, and all those organizations would have received the invite through that group. Although I would be happy to do some additional follow-up specifically with those partners if they've been left out in some way.
Did they not want to join in, or was that not the problem?
We had over 60 organizations on the call. So unless they spoke up, I don't know if they were there or not, but I can follow up and let you know. I know we had staff that did track all the participants that day.
Thank you very much.
I would just maybe add, Councillor Kiefer, that because we are trying to expedite this application at the speed of light, it's possible that some people were maybe not able to make, some organizations are maybe not able to the meeting we set, and so we our intention is always to consult the community partners. So we will engage them going forward.
Dr. Wang, you and your team are doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks to staff for pulling this together so quickly. It looks great. And I just want to confirm, I think I'm correct in assuming that some of the COVID funding that we have been receiving would be able to cover this particular cost?
I'll maybe let Craig speak to that, but I think we don't have a guarantee.
Craig, would you like to speak to that?
Well, just to say, Madam Chair, that I don't have a clear indication at this point that the costs, that there is an alternate source of funding. So we would look to find, if this is something that we're going to proceed with, we'll look to, make a recommendation as to how we would fund it internally.
Councillor Clark?
For clarity, I certainly wouldn't suggest that I wouldn't support it if there were no easily identified funding source. I'm certainly in support of this. Is this something that you want a motion from council for at this point?
Yes, please.
I'm happy to put that motion forward.
That's great. And Councillor Clark, we're speaking about this because of your inquiry and your direction to staff. So thank you for doing that. Councillor McGarry.
Thank you, and I'm fully supportive of Val of something like this. So just a couple of questions. How many spots do you think, or how many beds would be guesstimated to be needed? And secondly, how would you get the information out to those individuals that may need a program like this?
Sharlene, is this your question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So first of all, we estimated for the interim plan over the 63-day period that we could meet the needs of approximately 30 people. When we're looking at the full application, we're basing it on the number of cases and the percentage of the populations that were identified in those areas or neighborhoods at higher risk for COVID or disproportionately affected by COVID. So at the formal application will look to provide beds for up to 84 people, and then the interim would be approximately 30 people. In terms of sharing the information or how people will know about this, part of what we did with some of our consultations so far and will continue to do is to reach out through community partners to give them the information of how they can refer back to the program, particularly for, and we had a great conversation with the folks in the city of Kitchener around some of the neighborhood access points that they have that we could get information out through. So that certainly will be part of it. And as well, when the public health nurses are doing their case investigation work, they do talk about the need for isolation and what's required to do that. And they are starting to hear individuals voice some of their concerns about being able to do that in their homes. So we would be able to also ask those questions about if they need some supports for isolation and then be able to refer them through to the program from that point of entry as well.
Councillor McGarry, any further questions?
No, and thank you, Madam Chair.
So
Thank you, Sharlene.
Thank you. These are all good questions. I have Councillor Clark putting a motion forward that we undertake this for 30 people for from November 30th to January 31st. Is there somebody seconding that? Seconded by Councillor McGarry. My question was going to be the application process. This is called interim. So the application process, Sharlene, you talked about it being 84 people. What's the timeline like? Have we embarked on that? Are we partway through? Do we know when we might expect to hear back on that application?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's our intention to have the application submitted this Friday. And then according to the contact we had with the Public Health Agency of Canada, they estimated a 3 to 4 week turnaround time for approvals. And we just built in an extra period of time because of the holiday season. So in case it got sort of tied up in that, we wanted to ensure that if we had started an interim site, we could continue it through that period. So like I say, our hope is that it will be submitted this Friday and we should hear about it very quickly.
Thank you very much. I see no further questions, so we have the motion on the floor, moved and seconded. Please use your icons to vote and raise your hand to the affirmative if you're in the chamber. Thank you, that is passed. And just Dr. Wang and Sharlene, thank you so much for, this is a very quick turnaround. This is an outstanding need, and give you full points for being nimble and quick and bringing something back that has the full support of all of council. Is there any further COVID or public health updates, Dr. Wang?
I don't have any for tonight, but if you have councillors have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Councillor Foxton.
Thank you. How do I find the daily totals besides bugging Sharlene all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they're on our website. The dashboard.
Yeah.
The actual curve itself will show the total number that were reported in the last 24 hours. But sometimes that number doesn't quite match up exactly with the totals. With the total added to the number from the day before, because with this provincial system, sometimes there's an incorrect categorization of which health unit a case belongs to, and so sometimes cases shift back and forth between health units, and sometimes there are cases that are possible cases that we start an investigation on, but they're not confirmed that day, but then a few days later they're confirmed. And so sometimes the numbers are a little bit off in terms of the total, the net total versus the total for that day. But I know we're working on introducing something that when you go on to the dashboard, you will see right away what's the net new number since the last 24-hour period, as well as what's the new number over the 24-hour. I'm not making it any clearer. I'm sorry.
No, you know what? Bruce has just told me I'm supposed to bug him if I need it. I will do that.
Yeah, you know what?
You're off the hook, Sharlene.
Long day, but we'll try to introduce some things. We are working on some things to our dashboard to try to make it clearer for people so they don't have to make the calculations themselves.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for everything you do for our community. And I know at the community update briefing last Friday, Lee Fairclough from St. Mary's Hospital and Dr. Wang and I were on, and one of the questions the press asked was, does it discourage the frontline medical officers and healthcare providers that people are now banging pots and pans at 7 o'clock at night? And I think the overwhelming response from Dr. Wang and Lee Fairclough was the best thing you can do to appreciate what all of our public health care, our paramedics and everybody who's involved with making sure that we're safe from COVID-19 is to follow the public health guidelines. The best thing everybody can do is wear a mask, stay home when you have symptoms, get tested if you're sick, wash your hands often, and don't socialize with people outside of your house. That's how we can show what we truly do appreciate what you do. Dr. Wang?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to, so thank you for mentioning, yes, I will have some updated stats, that will be provided for councillors as well. At the Friday briefing, including the statistics, the latest statistics that reflect the work of that multi-ministry team that have been in our region for enforcement, for example. So there will be some additional info at the Friday briefing when I get the weekly stats. But overall, yes, I will just quickly say that our rates can continue to be high, and they do reflect that we were placed in the appropriate zone because not only our new number of cases, but the fact that we do have a growing number of outbreaks, and what you said was really the key message that I would like to pass, which is that our region is now under significant restrictions for some businesses, and I think the best thing that we can do as a community to support our businesses and to support each other is to really reduce all non-essential social interactions. So do not have social gatherings with people outside of your immediate household, outside of your workplace when you're not working. With family and friends that you don't have to have. So that's really not the time to have social interactions that are not essential, and to please limit the amount of times that you go out in order to undertake essential errands. Either go to work, go to school, go to the grocery, or to get takeout. Or to do some essential exercise, preferably outdoors. But it's really, I think, the best thing that all of us can try to do for each other in our community in this difficult time right now. Do whatever we can to reduce our social interactions, our non-essential social interactions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wang. And Sharlene, again, thank you. And both of you, your team, this is terrific. I would now entertain a motion to enact the bylaws first, second, and third readings. This is moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by Councillor Galloway. And Dr. Wang, you'll be of interest. There are actually 4 bylaws. The first is for an Associate Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Rabi Mbana. The second bylaw is to amend the bylaw and appoint Associate Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Ryan Van Meer. The third is a bylaw to amend bylaw number 58-87, and this is to designate and regulate controlled access roads, Fisher-Hallman Road in the city of Kitchener. And the fourth is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Regional Municipality of Waterloo at this regular meeting held November 25th, 2020. So if you would please use your icons to vote, and in the chamber, if you raise your hand at this point, it would be you're in favor of this motion. That is carried. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn. This is moved by Councillor Harris and seconded by Councillor Clark. Please use your icons to vote yes or no. In the chamber, you could either vote with your feet or you could raise your hand. Surprisingly, that is carried, I think, unanimously. Thank you, colleagues. And again, thank you, Dr. Wang. Thank you, staff. A long but very fruitful day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Night.